Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight for this very important event, and thank you for our guest speaker to be present, State Representative Vicki Lopez and Ernesto Cuesta from the BHA. We will go ahead and begin with the SIRS legal update. So, Federico, if you would.
Yep. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's definitely a honor, but mostly a pleasure to welcome Vicki Lopez, our friend, state representative for Florida. She will entertain us with some information on condo laws, legal updates, and the SIRS, which is the structural reserve that all condominiums above 3 stories, right, have to sort of account for starting at the end of this year. Before leaving the floor to Vicki, let me just read a couple of, her bio, which is impressive. So Vicki was elected to the Florida House of Representatives in November of 2022 and represent our district, District 113, which includes, of course, Key Biscayne, Miami City Hall, Calle Ocho, Brickell Avenue, the Miami River, and the Port of Miami. She serves on a lot of committees, and she was appointed by the Speaker of the House to serve as the Vice Chair on the Health Innovation, as well as on the Children, Families, and Senior Subcommittee, Infrastructure and Tourism Appropriation Subcommittee, Post-Secondary Education, Pre-K, 12, and Transportation and Models. She also got appointed to serve on the Housing Development Corporation of Florida Board of Directors, which focuses its effort on mobilizing capital to finance multifamily houses for individuals and families of all income levels. And she's a graduate from the University of Notre Dame, where she earned a degree in accounting. So, accounting, so money, accounting. Well, the floor is yours, Vicki. Again, for me, it's a great, great pleasure to have you here visiting Icon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Federico. Thank you to Icon. We have been very close friends, and I've been very, very interested in what goes on at Icon. So I'm excited to be here to give you a little bit of an update on what occurred in the legislature this year vis-a-vis condos. So I'll start with the easier of the two. So I was the sponsor of what was known as House Bill 1029, better known as the My Safe Florida Condo Pilot Program. And for those of you that may not have known, we've had a very similar program for 17 years called the My Safe Florida Homes Program, where people that live in single-family homes could get a free inspection of their roof and exterior doors and windows, and then apply for a $10,000 grant in order to help harden their homes to reduce the insurance premiums. So this year, Speaker Renner and I talked a lot about why don't we try to do the same thing in condos? Because I want you to know, sometimes I think condominiums have been sort of the stepchildren of what we know as residential housing. And the reason I say that is they never talk about it until the terrible tragedy in Surfside, and when 98 people, lost their lives, there was a big spotlight shined on condominiums. And so for the last 3 years, we've been talking about condominiums a lot, and that's a good thing. So the speaker said, "Do you think it will work?" And I said, "I have no idea if it will work or it doesn't, because it's different, right? Those of us that live in condominiums live in vertical living, and we're not sure if it will work, but it's definitely worth a try." So here's what the program does. The governor signed the bill, I think 3 weeks ago. So effective July 1st, condominiums will be able to, if the board takes a majority vote, or if the people who live, condo owners, have a majority vote, they can ask for a free inspection of the building. Now that may not mean a lot here in Miami-Dade County, because Miami-Dade County has been recertifying buildings here in Broward since 1997. So if you are 30 years or older, you've probably had a recertification or you're getting ready to have one, so that'll be part of the process. But for those that haven't been recertified or are younger, buildings, you can ask for a free inspection. And the Department of Financial Services is the department that is going to oversee this program. We put $30 million into the budget for it. So let's assume here this great board says we want to get an inspection. They could vote, the unanimous vote. The majority vote of this board could then request an inspection of the roof and the exterior doors and windows. A report will be generated by the inspector. The inspector will send that report to the association, and it will also send it to the Department of Financial Services. Then, and here's the glitch, and I honestly believe that this is something I'm going to have to fix next year. The legislature wanted it to be a unanimous vote of everyone who is a qualified voter in the building in order to move forward with the grant application. I'm tired of saying you can't get a unanimous vote about today's Thursday in my building. I have a lot of absentee voters, or let's say absentee owners, who are disengaged because they don't live either in the city, the state, or the country. So I couldn't, in order to get this passed, I had to agree to that, even though I don't think it works. So I'm telling everybody, and I'd like the money to be spent here in my district. I have 667 condo associations in District 113, believe it or not. It's nuts. When I charted it on a map, I could not believe it. I have 667 dots on a map, and it is unbelievable that it's all over my district. And so I would like you all to consider, if you haven't already, think about whether you want to get that free inspection, because it'll tell you whether your building needs to be hardened. And that is exactly what the insurance companies are telling us, that if you do it, then they will reduce the premiums. So that was the big sort of little insurance fix I tried to make vis-a-vis condominiums. So then let's fast forward to House Bill 1021, which is the big condo bill. It was 154 pages. It did a lot of things. The first and most important one, I think, is what we were able to do with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. So that's the agency that has the authority, the statutory authority, to regulate condominiums. And all summer long, we heard, complaints from condo owners, from condo boards, that, back and forth. Mostly condo owners saying, I can't get access to records, I think the elections are fraudulent. And what we discovered was that DBPR actually didn't have the authority we thought they had. So in statute, it says that they have the authority for access of records, financial records, and elections. What we learned was that when the building is still in the hands of the developer, DBPR has a lot of jurisdiction. But what it did not have, all that jurisdiction seemed to go away when they did a turnover to the condo association. So I asked DBPR to tell me where are the most complaints, and they said the most complaints are that condo owners can't get access to records, and followed by elections complaints. So I said, okay, because a lot of condo owners, and I don't know if that happened to anyone in Icon, but if they had a complaint, they probably got a response back from DBPR that said, not within our jurisdiction. Very frustrating for condo owners across the state. So we said, look, why don't you go and give us a menu of services that you think will, kind of get to the root of the problem, that you can now finally do your job, at least the job I thought you were doing. And it's very interesting. They collect $4 for every single door condominium unit in Florida. There are more than 1,500,000 condominium units in Florida, more than 2.5 million people living in condominiums, right? So if they're collecting, you do the math, a little bit more than $6 million is being collected, and that was just to run the department. So I asked, how much is it going to take to do all the things that you've come to tell me? And there's a pretty lengthy list of new services that they can do. And they said about 7.5, 7.6 million. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it to you, but I better not hear from any constituent that you're not doing your job. Because now you have 6 plus 7.6, you almost have $14 million. That should be plenty of money to do the job. So let's hope it is. They're going to hire 65 new people to address all the situations. Currently, there's a lot of condo owners that have gone to the state attorney, and honestly, it's the wrong place to go to. They are acting as if they are like the DBPR. So they have 400 cases. The state attorney in Miami-Dade has 400 cases it's reviewing, but it shouldn't be spending its time reviewing to determine whether or not it's criminal or not. That's going to be one of the new duties of DBPR. They will determine if the complaint appears to be criminal, then they would refer it. Because let's just face it, the state attorney doesn't have the money to do this, and so this isn't their job, and so we've said to them, we got to put this back on the onus of who it rightfully belongs to. So that was the really big deal, because right now, I mean, I was struck by the fact that it can't help my people. So it will be able to help, and I want to know if it can't help, because then I'll have to take other measures. So then the other thing that was really important, going back to the records, why would people need to, you know, why weren't they getting the records? So we said, you know what, let's just remove the challenge. Let's lower the threshold of the number of units that you can have in order to be mandated to have a website. So we went from 25 units to 25, 150 units to 25 units. So now it encompasses a whole lot more condominiums. And we also laid out which records have to be on the website at a bare minimum, right? So basically you should be able to now come, you know, as soon as the governor signs the bill, it will go into effect on July 1st. You should be able to look on your website, download, review, download, and then we had a lot of complaints about, there's no way for me to ask questions. Like, what's the forum for asking questions? So we said, all right, we'll mandate that you have to meet at least 4 times a year. You're supposed to have been meeting to have an annual meeting when you elect your officers, and then one when you pass your budget, or you do it all at the same time, depending on the association. So what we've decided is 4 would be good. You can do both of the other 2 functions, and then you'll have 2 where you can submit your questions to the board, and the board can answer them. So I think it's important to have a lot of transparency, and that was one of the bigger problems. For elections, I thought my bill, I just recently realized that my bill doesn't sort of mandate electronic voting. It still says you can either do it by paper ballot or electronic ballot. But if you choose electronic ballot, then a homeowner, a condo owner, can request their ballot electronically, and it must be given to them. This was a really big deal. There are many condominiums who don't even hold elections because they cannot reach the quorum. It's 20%. That goes to show you how disengaged everybody is that's living in these buildings. And so it's not really everybody, because I see engaged people sitting right here. But for the vast majority of people that don't even live here, don't even know what's going on, don't care what's going on, all they care is that they have a tenant renting their, it's an investment property for them. For many of us, it's living every day, day in and day out, right? But if you can't even reach the 20% quorum, then you can't have an election, unfortunately. So we're hopeful that they will move, those that haven't been able to reach quorum, which have been several, even on Brickell, we're hoping that they will move to electronic voting, and then they can send the ballots anywhere electronically, and they can return them electronically. Maybe that will help a little bit, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I just find, I found this in Brickell Place too. They were holding an election. People flew in from different countries, and then 2 days before they canceled the election, the people were here. They said, can I have my ballot? I have to return to my country. Can I have my ballot electronically? They said no. So they returned home, and really, I don't know what happened with their ballots. They wouldn't even give them the paper ballot either to fill out. So those kind of things are meant to disengage sometimes, and so we want to get rid of that. We also heard a lot of complaints around conflicts of interest, both of board members and of property managers. So for instance, I know property managers who have management companies, and then they have an interest in or provide landscaping services, you know, janitorial services, pool cleaning services. So somehow that wasn't all being said when the property manager was being hired. So we said, look, I think it's important that condo owners and condo boards know if you have a conflict of interest. So now when they're executing their contract with the condo association, property managers must list out all of their conflicts. And once they've listed them out, then the condo association is free to say, okay, we want to use them. It's cheaper. We know you have an interest in it, or not, right? And the same goes for condo board members. There were condo board members that were suggesting vendors in which they had interests or families had interests, and so we've said you too have to say if there's a conflict of interest. So I think that was an important, another important way to increase transparency in condominiums. We did look at the Structural Integrity Reserve Study, and it's interesting that in Senate Bill 154, which is the bill that passed last year, not this past year, the one that mandated the milestone inspections and the Structural Integrity Reserve Studies, the milestone inspections had to be given within 45 days to any owner that requested, or it had to be put on the website, right? We forgot to do that with the SIRS. I don't know why. That's the most important one. That's where your money's going. So now this bill ensures that the same thing happens that happened with the milestone inspections. You'll get a copy of it, or it'll be put on the website, and you can be told that you can download it from there if you want to review it. So again, yet another transparency. I want to clear up a confusion, and I know Ernesto's been really great about making sure people know this, but it came up in a symposium that I was at last week or 2 weeks ago. So people are confused about what reserves can be waived and what can't. So there's two types of reserves. There is your regular deferred repairs and maintenance, right? And then there is the SIRS. So the SIRS cannot be waived. The funds cannot be commingled with any other funds. And it's in direct response to what happened in Surfside, right? So I'll give you an example. You're going to have 8 structural components on your SIRS. They're going to tell you for each one of those what the useful life is for that particular SIRS item. They're also going to estimate the cost. So I'll give you an example. If the roof is one of those structural components, if the roof has a 10-year useful life and the estimated cost at the end of 10 years to repair or replace it is $1 million, you have to start reserving $100,000 every year. So at the end of the 10th year, you have the $1 million, which is what Champlain Towers did not have. It didn't have $2 million when it was 2. It did not have $6 million when it was 6, and it surely didn't have $9 million right before it collapsed. And that's because they weren't doing any of the repairs, right? And a lot, I always say the county in its best attempt had chosen 40 years as the mark to do recertifications, and in fact we know it collapsed at 38 and a half. So 30 years is a good mark. This bill last year's bill allows the county to also go to 25 years, and we understand there's an ordinance that will go before the county commission that will move all recertifications in Miami-Dade County to 25 years. And I think that that's very prudent because we don't know what the impact is of living on the coastlines. So I tell you that because the SIRS could also tell you, and it may not happen here in this county, but I want you to realize we have 67 counties in Florida. 2 of them have been recertifying buildings since 1997. 65 have never recertified a building. These condominiums are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. I don't know what we're going to find there because Ernesto and I always talk about the fact, and we like to be straight up about this, we're entering into an era where we could have a condo crisis on our hands. What's going to happen? So let's assume for a minute, and I'm just going to use the Icon as an example. It is not happening here, but let's assume for a minute that they had been waiving some reserves, right? So here comes the SIRS. It's supposed to be a prospective document, right, to tell you what does the future hold for you. Well, let me tell you what they're finding. Some of them are finding, they look at the roof and they say the roof needed repairs yesterday. So it's a special assessment. That's what's happening now, right? For most buildings, and I don't think this is the case in Icon, it will be a prospective document, right? So it'll tell you, looking forward, what's going to happen and how much is it going to cost us, right? And the SIRS says, the statute says, any budget passed on or after January 1st, 2025, you have to start reserving then, right? So a lot of condo boards are telling me, well, we don't pass our budget until December. And I say, okay, December of 2025, that budget you have to start reserving in 2026, right? Because the 2025 budget in December is for the year 2026, right? So you can't, a lot of people are saying, did they change the date? Did they give us more leeway? No, absolutely not. And there's no way that you're going to ever get the legislature to keep kicking the can down. This is it. And it's hard because it's coming at a time where everything is increasing. Property insurance has increased. The special assessments that you might have. If you're doing a certification, they'll tell you that your building is most probably safe, but you have to do the following repairs. That's a special assessment, right? So everywhere we look, there could be a perfect storm of assessments. And why, you ask yourself, did people waive reserves when they could, right? They did so because many of the condominiums, particularly those built in the 70s and 80s, have been home to retirees who thought that they would retire here, and they thought that their $500 monthly assessment was enough to keep the building going forever and ever, amen, at least until they died or moved. So everyone kicked the can down the road, which is why we're in the mess that we're in today. Because had people been doing their deferred repairs and maintenance, I can assure you that the SIRS would probably show very little assessment, right? But that isn't the case now, and so we do talk, Ernesto and I do talk a lot about this, about condo terminations maybe on the rise as well. Hopefully that's not the case here, but with 667 condo associations just in my district, and many of them occupied by retirees who are being hit with huge assessments, at some point, condo boards will start to say, we can't go on, and so they will solicit developers to come in, buy out the condominiums, and then, you know, because remember, the developers are not buying the old buildings. They're buying the land those old buildings are on. They're raising the buildings, and then they're putting up new buildings. And I will tell you this is also impacting now mortgage companies and banks. They don't want to now give mortgages in these very old buildings. It's very interesting what's happening. The Cricket Club has vast majority of its units up for sale. People, there was one case that I just learned about. The gentleman put his up at $434,000. He ended up walking away with $175,000. Why, you ask? Because people kept asking, what are the reserves? What are the reserves? Are there reserves? And then the banks said, we're not going to give a mortgage to anybody that's moving into a building that doesn't have reserves. So it's kind of a ripple effect across not only condominium living, but across the financial markets and the lenders. So luckily, I think the Icon is in very, very good shape, and so grateful. And I think that's the case with many of our buildings on Brickell, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that there may be people that will have to sell, and hopefully it won't be the majority, because then that's when the condo terminations obviously begin. So let me see if I've missed anything here at all. I do want to tell you that what I want to do going forward. So the insurance is regulated for condominiums in the Condominium Act, which is Section 718 of the law. And there is 2 paragraphs there. One that says condominiums must be insured for the full replacement value. Okay? Now, I'm arguing that I've never seen a storm take down an entire building where you would have to fully replace it, right? I'm arguing that point. But the second sentence after that sentence says, if 3 or more buildings group together in 718, 719, 720, these are HOAs as well, right? You don't have to do it to full replacement value. And I'm thinking to myself, I just learned that, Ernesto. I was thinking, wait, why is that? Shouldn't everyone get the same? Why should you have to group together to get what I think is the right insurance coverage? Because I think the full replacement value is in fact over-insuring the buildings. So I'm going to try to work on this session. It's going to be a little bit of a heavy lift because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac don't agree. So I may have to go to Washington and plead my case there because I don't think they understand it. I think that may be part of the problem, but I'm going to die trying to see if I can change that so that everyone can do what the private insurance market does. It runs loss ratios on your building based on the hardened of your building, right? So if you're up to hurricane code, chances that you come up with and I know they do it for the once in 250-year storm, once in the 500-year storm, so they're being very conservative about what could happen. They run these models, and then they have a loss ratio. That's what we should be insuring the buildings for. That makes the most sense to me. So it's one of the big things I'm going to work on Condo 4.0. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we're not done with this legislation at all. I'm learning something new as I go around talking to people. I miss certain things, but I do want to start bringing more clarity. You know, look at condominiums are complex. The condo board members are going to have to take a course because the law has significantly changed in the last 3 years. So we're requiring condo board members members to take a 4-hour course, and every year thereafter a refresher. I'm telling condo owners they should take the same course. You should know what your rights are. You should know what the law says, because that way you're better prepared to have conversations with your condo board. Makes all the sense in the world. You should educate yourself. Do not depend only on what the condo board tells you or what your condo attorneys tell you, or what your property managers tell you. You know, you have a right, you're living in this. And then the next thing that I may have to fix, so speaking of condo terminations, which you're not gonna have to do, thank God, but in some cases, there's been holdouts. There have been one or two people that say, I'm not gonna sell, and they're holding everyone in that building hostage. So the only other recourse they have is to go into foreclosure or receivership. So I've gotta fix that, because the majority of you, at least 80% of you, should be able to say, we cannot afford all the costs to live in this building, and so we move to get a developer, you know, to solicit developers to come in and tell us what they would, you know, purchase the property for. So those are two kind of big things I'm looking at, but I will have a very long list of things that we've been collecting, and I'm calling it the Condo 4.0 list, and we'll be sure to talk with both BNA, BHA, DNA. Our condo associations are important to get their feedback once we have a good list of what we think needs to go forward. But I would say this, and I know Federico knows this, Ernesto certainly knows this. If you have any ideas, you don't hesitate to contact my office about them, because I want to know what they are so that I can fix them. It's really important to me that we have an ongoing working relationship, not only with the boards, but with owners. So if there's anything that you can think of that you think, oh my gosh, this has to be fixed, I'm really very happy to entertain that. So that is my full report. I don't think I missed anything. Nope, I think I got it all.
Vicki, thank you very much. Please. Let me also try to, I should have said 3 things that I forgot. First of all, Vicki is also a resident of Brickell. So that, you know, on her CV is, you know, I forgot. I also forgot to introduce my friend Ernesto Cuesta, which probably everybody knows Ernesto. Ernesto is the president of the BHA. We are member as Icon, and as most of the buildings in the condominium in Brickell. And he's been doing this for many years, right, Ernesto? Yeah, and you know, he has been a great help to the condominium association, and we enjoy very much working with him. And here, sitting near me, is you know, Giampaolo. You guys know him also. He's the treasurer of Tower One. So, you know, I just wanted to mention this.
Can I just say the importance of being a member of BHA? It has been striking that those who have not joined, you know, an association of this magnitude and strength, they're left outside of what's going on. I am always amazed at the good work that BHA is doing, informing residents of what's going on, and not just what's going on in our buildings, what's going on in our neighborhood. Traffic, you know, whenever there's going to be you know, like for instance, we're going to have some traffic, you know, halting because of the overpass on Key Biscayne. They give you full advance notice. It's such a resource, and I'm so glad that Icon is a member. But I wanted to tell you, you know, it is great that you are, because you get so many benefits. You derive so many notices about things that are important in our neighborhood. So yes, I'm really grateful to hear that, and I'm also grateful to see the good property managers that you all have here. That makes a huge difference in buildings. If you get professionals to really be your eyes and ears in the operations, it makes a big difference as well. So kudos to Icon for doing it right.
Thank you, Vicki. Yes?
Yeah, I want to add something. Thank you for hosting us here tonight. And But through the years of experience that we have, well, let me say something else. I think that we are in need of more better property managers, but also we are in an urgency to have better board members.
Yes.
And we are lacking from that. The reason I got involved with the BHA, I was 25 years old, and we have been always, my family, investors in this area. And I was reached out by this group of investors, 1985. I was 25 years old, and it took us 5 years to come out and establish the Brickell Homeowners Association. And the reason that we did it is because these people that they were older than I was. As a matter of fact, I am the only founding member alive, because back then I was 25, but the rest of the group were in the late 50s and 60s. So you can imagine. I am 46 this year. No, not inverse. So so anyway, so I'm 64. So anyway, it has been a long time now. So, but it took us 5 years to form this organization. These people, they had great vision, and the reason that we got involved is because, number one, we had major investments in this area. And my grandmother told me, you have to follow these people, because you know the only way to take care of your investments is getting involved. So through the years, we have always worked with the legislature. And I'm going to tell you something. This lady is the only rep that have been heavily involved in condos in our state. I'm telling you right now, through my memory. I will mention one person that was the pioneer. That was Julio Robaina. He was a Republican, but he was ignored by his own party. And he did as much as he could, and he was totally, you know, he was placed aside and forgotten. But since we have been working with Vicki, she has been the only one. She convinced Senator Bradley, which I'm very appreciative of her work, and Senator Calatayud. Without these three musketeers, we would have been probably out in the black. Why? Because we have a crisis over our head. And even though the Icon is in good state and in good financial situation, your values here, my values in the other properties that I have here, are going to be affected and impacted by the other associations that are in this area. I'm telling you, it's not a joke. There are buildings here in the Brickell area. They are members of our association that they have not 1 cent to survive. Newer buildings, and they are older buildings that they are heading to condo terminations because they don't have the funds to fix all the problems that they have. Anything that happens in this area is going to affect you. It's going to affect me and the other members that we have investments in this area. So don't want to scare you. 2 years ago, we projected that the condo business was going to end up in the MRI. Everybody said, what the hell is MRI? Simple. Maintenance, reserves, and insurance. And it's happening. I had done a lot of podcasts, which I invite you to look at Becker Lawyers and Global Pro, and we are disseminating all this information because this is not a joke. This is going to be worse than 2008, the subprime crisis. As we speak, there are young people here in Brickell that they're going to lose their properties. So this is a waking call. Very thankful to Vicki. By the way, read my lips. I'm not a Republican, but this lady deserves to be re-elected. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ernesto. Vicki has a hard stop at 6 because she has other prior engagement. But if we have some questions, Elaine.
sorry, is anyone studying the impact of global warming on rising waters? Because we are right on the water here. Thank you.
So I know that I have been very concerned about that. I mean, obviously, my district is abutting water the entire way from Northeast 29th Street, which is my northern boundary, all the way to Coconut Grove. And I think the legislature is concerned about it. To what extent, I don't know, because I'm not in that committee. But it is something that I am interested in. There was a discussion just this morning. I was speaking to the North Palm Beach Chamber of Commerce, and their concern was the seawalls and how they have not been even considered in this discussion, right? That all we talk about is the building itself. But what's going to happen when, and how far back the buildings are set back from those seawalls? So it is something that I'm thinking about now that we're going to have to start having a discussion about, unfortunately, because from Volusia County south, a lot of these seawalls are in really bad shape, and they're not a lot of people don't even reserve for them. They're highly expensive to repair or replace. So yes, it's something on my mind, and I will take that into consideration when we're thinking about what's going to happen here with the water, because it's definitely coming. Look at, if you've ever been on the waters on the king tides, it's like right up there. Like it's so scary. So yeah, thank you so much for that question.
I want to add something else. In 2017, and this is why we need to continue educating our memberships. We Miamians, we went to the polls and we voted for the Miami bonds. And the Miami bonds included infrastructure and seawall replacement. We are in 2024, and the bimbos that we have in the city hall had not done anything. So it's our fault. The reason that Brickell Avenue got flooded through all the storms and things like that, it's not because the rising of the water or anything like that. It's because the pumps that are supposed to be working, the pumps are supposed to be working, they were not maintained. They didn't have the personnel to take care of that. It's our fault that we don't go to the polls and vote, because the leaders that we have in the city of Miami are poor leaders. And you know what was the excuse? They don't have the staff, enough personnel to manage and to maintain those pumps that they were not working on Brickell. So it's not I think it's an excuse that the level of the water is raising. Is the incompetence of the city hall that is not delivering, and the county that is not delivering the service that we pay. Because Brickell Avenue, this area, 72% of the revenue generated in this area, okay, 72% of the revenue generated in this area goes to the city of Miami. Without Brickell area, Miami does not exist. One of the poorest cities in the whole nation. But we are not respected. You know why? Because we don't go to the polls. So, just for your information.
That first House bill that you brought up, right? Move forward a little bit. Gotcha. Thank you, man. On the inspections,
Yeah.
right? So you said quorum of the community has to vote in favor. Why such a low threshold or high threshold?
So because it requires that there be a financial investment on the part of each condo owner. So the legislature didn't want to. Yes, yes. Remember, it's the legislature will give you, if the report shows that you have to do hardening, then it will give you $1,000 for per unit for the roof, and $1,500 per unit for the doors and windows, up to a total contribution of $175,000 per building, right? That's not a lot of money for big buildings like this. It'll probably help all of my little buildings in Little Havana, right? But that's a start. Remember, because if I can prove it works, I just think that this unanimous thing, I mean, look at, we assess people every day here. Guess what? You don't need a unanimous to anything. And I've got to just convince them, when everyone spends the money to get the free inspection, because there was funds appropriated for that, when we go through that and no one can do the grant, then I can plead my case. What I have found is the legislature is very reactive and not very proactive. And that's very frustrating for me, who's always kind of a visionary looking forward, like, how will this work, right? They don't worry about that till it doesn't work, and then we have to come back and fix it.
I appreciate that. It's just, it's so difficult, right? So many, to your point, apathetic, right? Apathy in a lot of these condos. And, you know, we try to get votes, we try to get things moved, and most condos that I'm involved with, they're paycheck to paycheck. Some of them aren't. They're actually going to literally the check cashing store, right? Getting advances, right? They're that impoverished, and then to have a threshold like that, it makes it difficult.
Absolutely. Matt. No, you need one
And
for the thing.
No,
Matt.
because is it.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time and coming to our home and explaining to us all about the new condo laws and the reserve that's needed. Now, as far as the insurance concerned, with the inspection that you suggested that you set money aside to offer to building, you said we will definitely get some kind of discount from insurance company. As you know, you live on Brickell, so you live in a condo. The most expensive item on a condo is the insurance. What is it you can do to help control the insurance rise? Like last year for 2024, for example, our condo fees went up by 40%. No, I'm sorry, let me take it back. The insurance cost went up by 40%, and it feels like they can do whatever they want to do at any time. What is it you can help with?
So the vast majority of condominiums are insured by citizens. We're known as commercial residential, right? And the reason is because the private insurance market says these buildings are really old, and you know what? We don't want to take the risk. So the last resort is citizens, right? It is over. I can tell you right now that the market is starting to stabilize. I'm hopeful that now that everyone's having to do milestone inspections and are having to make repairs across the state, because remember what insurance companies do, they spread their risk around. The Miami-Dade County has the most condominiums in the entire state, followed by Broward and followed by Palm Beach. Guess where the highest risk is for an insurance company? Right here. So they charge us more here. That's what happens. I mean, and the value of the condos has gone up 40%. Remember that. Your values have gone up, so your insurance premium goes up. And then we have the problem of what's called the reinsurance market, which, if you know, is, for those of you that don't know what reinsurance is so that, like if you have a company, if Federico has a company, he has to buy insurance. Insurance companies buy insurance. It's called reinsurance. Here's what happens. They're investors. They're global investors that will lend insurance, that will give insurance companies insurance. Here's what happens. They usually will lend it to 10, maybe 15%. Guess what happens when the world is in the mess that it is? I have the Ukraine conflict. I have the Middle East conflict. I have China. I have fires in California. And now they're predicting 5 terrifying unnamed storms to hit Florida. You know what investors do? They get nervous. And you know what they say? You want my money? You're going to get it now at 40 and 50%. And they pass that on to us. So the state of Florida actually went in and put money aside to be like a reinsurance company to help stimulate the market. But I mean, that is not the job of government. We should not be in the reinsurance market. We should not be in the insurance market. But because no one will insure us, the state has to say, well, they got to have insurance. So it's complicated, Maher, and I think as the insurance market is stabilizing, we've had 8 insurance companies come back. So I'm hearing that things will get better. I know in my building, the insurance didn't go up this year. A miracle at 2101 Brickell Skyline. It stayed flat. I was so shocked. Yes, but
let me take on the insurance. As a matter of fact, that's part of our family business. So, commercial, not residential. There are few factors that people ignore what happened here with insurance. I want to take on the representative notes. first of all, inflation. No doubt about it. Secondly, we were fooled by all our politicians. Your taxes are not going up. No, your taxes went up because the value of your properties went up. So that's a false. And by the way, your insurance is also is based on the value of your property. Three, there were a lot of companies that they left the state because of claims. And number four, the commissions of your brokers, including mine. Okay, I think that it had gone above and beyond. Those are the factors. Aside from that, what the representative is saying about her building, they are being fooled, and I can prove you that you have been fooled by your insurance, because they say your premiums are not going up. My friends, the broker that tells you that, he's lying to you. You know why? Yeah, your premiums might be lower, but your exclusions, and your deductibles are going to be extremely high. So at the same time, probably you are not going to be even fully insured. So be careful. I'm going to give you another piece of my mind on this. I have been, I lost all my hair in these things. But I have learned, and every day I learn something new. I'm not saying that your broker is not a nice person or whatever. They are in business to make money. Like all of us, that's fine. But we don't have to steal money from anybody. But my recommendation to boards, you want to have a close look about your current policies. Do not trust your brokers. Go to the public adjusters. The public adjusters are the best friends of the investors, the best friends of us, the owners here on condos. So they will do it for free, by the way. Contact any good public adjuster, and they will examine all your policies accordingly with the third eye. And they will tell you the problem of the exclusions and the problem with your deductibles. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know Ms. Lopez does have to get going, so I did want to say thank you once again for joining us here at Iconbrickell. We really appreciate it. We're honored to have you here. Thank you for the wonderful information that you're giving to the community and everything that you're doing to fight for this area and all of Florida.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. I really appreciated seeing everyone. Thank you, Federico. Thank you, Giampaolo. Thank you for all your help and support.
Let's give her another round of applause, please.